Tell me what you see here, Chris. Let's take a look.
Myself?
When I wake up in the morning and the alarm gets out of warning, I don't think I'll ever make it on time. By the time I grab my books and I give myself a look, I'm at the corner just in time to see the bus fly by. It's alright, cause I'm saved by the bell.
Hello and welcome back to Saved by the Bell Boxing Channel. Volume 6, Episode 6. Now today we're going to talk about Hughie Fury, the young pretender or the young contender, 24 years old, beaten only twice by top level, you would say, heavyweight opponents. Now Hughie Fury is a curious case. He's been overshadowed possibly by Tyson, who made big waves in the heavyweight division and big waves in boxing. Hughie Fury has got the Fury style, the skill, the distance, good technically, good feet, doesn't really have that one punch knockout power, but nevertheless has lots of skills and lots of tools in the bag. Now I think Hughie Fury was brought on quite well, brought on slowly, fought domestic opponents, then went into those European gatekeepers, beating the likes of Rudenko, Arias, and then going on to Dominic Gwynn and Fred Cassie. And when he hit Fred Cassie, he thought he was ready for a world title challenge. Now, I think Parker probably picked him as a challenger because I thought he might think it's an easy touch away into the British market. The Fury name again brings a lot of exposure. Obviously, we know he lost that fight. Now, we all remember Hennessy saying there were shades of Ali. He's going to regret that to the day he dies. But nevertheless, people thought it was a very close fight and that maybe Hughie Fury might have nicked it. But he didn't do enough aggressively. A lot of judges really score fights on the aggressive output of a certain opponent. And it seemed to be that Joseph Parker was putting on the aggression, putting on the high tempo volume of punches. Whereas Hughie Fury was tend to be sitting back, taking the jab, hitting those clean shots, but not enough. And he will kick himself, I think, after that fight, and has probably since kicked himself a lot because he thinks probably he should have put on more pressure. Because if you're going to win a world title, you've got to put on a bit of pressure. You've got to rip that title from the champion's waist. So, he fought Joseph Parker. He lost an unsuccessful world title bid. Then went down a level to fight Sam Sexton for a British title where he was very impressive, disposed of Sam Sexton quite easily in a TKO. So it showed that he was above British level and that he is operating possibly above European level. Then he went on to fight Kubrat Pulev, which is a big fight in anyone's books and a tough challenge, especially to go to Sofia and fight him in his own backyard, which is always going to be a difficult task. Then we got the cut. The dreaded cut came and he had to put the pressure on, and from that point he wasn't going to win the fight, so we never really saw how it would eventually could have turned out. It could have turned out differently if it were not for that cut. So Hughie Fury, what's the problem? You know, he carries the Fury name. The problem is, I believe, his promoter. Mick Hennessy hasn't got the pulling power that an Eddie Hearn or a Frank Warren or Al Heyman or any of these big promoters in the world of boxing. They just can't get the deals done. Mick Hennessy hasn't got a big TV network backing him. We get the free shows on Channel 5, which I love and I'm all for. Free boxing, brilliant stuff on terrestrial telly, brilliant stuff. But the world of boxing has changed. The Zone have come in. Showtime have got big money now with the ESPN have got the big money now. Showtime is showing their boxing. Sky have got some money. BT have got involved. ITV have got involved with PBC. He needs one of these names. Now, I know it's very well publicised that the Furies are very loyal to Mick Hennessy because of how Mick Hennessy has obviously held them. And we commend that. I commend that. The problem is your career could suffer because of that loyalty. So what do? Stick loyal and hope that eventually your talent and your skill will get you to a point where you have to fight for a world title and you have to be recognised by the big boys. I think there's a lot more to boxing nowadays. There's a lot more politics going in. There's money involved. So it's essential to get those mega fights or those big exposure fights. You really do have to be with a big TV network. So Mick Hennessy, unfortunately, I know he's delivered, for Tyson Fury in the past with the Vladimir Klitschko fight. But at that point, the boxing landscape was different to the way it is now. There's a lot more buzz around the heavyweights. Anthony Joshua has come in. Wilder's come to the prominence. Tyson Fury is back involved. There's a lot more interest around the heavyweight division, and Hughie Fury needs a big network to get in there. Now, you may be asking, well, is he good enough? Is he good enough to fight these elite fighters? Now, a lot he's talked about that he's only 24 years old, and yes, that is young. That is young. And for him to step up against Pulev, against Parker, I applaud him for that. Because fair play to you going out there. When you haven't got a big promoter, you haven't got a big TV network, you having to go to Sofia to fight Kubrat Pulev, which not many people would do. I don't think Dillian White wanted to do it. No one wanted to do it because it's a tough task to go away from home and try and get a victory, especially against a hometown favourite and someone. And let's not forget, Pulev is a good fighter. He's a big guy, holds a lot of power, he's better than I think people actually think he is, with only having one loss to Vladimir Klitschko. His record's not great, but he's still, the only loss he's had is to Vladimir Klitschko, and there's no shame in that. So, this opponent for his next fight, who's it going to be? You know, he can't really go back to domestic level. He needs someone that's going to put bums on seats, because Hughie Fury alone doesn't put arses on the plastic. So who's it going to be domestically? Well, you've got Dave Allen, you've got Dubois, you've got Gorman. I don't think those fights are really there for him, or that he wants them. He wants to keep at that, at least, you know, high European level. Now, I'm just surmising here, and this is just crazy talk possibly, but if you watch or listen to Tris Dixon's boxing stories, which I tell everyone who's a boxing fan, a sports fan, follow Tris Dixon on Twitter and download his podcast where he has one-to-one interviews with boxers trainers, journalists. It's fascinating stuff, and I would advise everyone that watches this to go and check him out, because he's doing brilliant work. Now, he did one with Shannon Briggs, and Shannon Briggs, in that interview, and I'm sure it was this interview, said that he had a possible opponent to fight over here in the UK coming soon. Now, just imagine if it was Hughie Fury against, did I say Tyson Briggs? No, Shannon Briggs against Shannon Briggs. Wouldn't that be interesting? Shannon Briggs against Hughie Fury. I kind of like to see that. Now, I know almost Shannon Briggs is a laughing stock, but I reckon he still carries power. Whether he can have a longevity through 12 rounds or 6 rounds even, but the power, it isn't going. The power is always there. That's the last thing to go. That's what they always say. So it'd be kind of interesting, and I think it would generate some interest because people know Shannon Briggs. People would want to watch Shannon Briggs. I know I would. I'm really interested because we've seen like the glimpses on the David Hay undercard, and you know he's not really fought anyone great, but we kind of just want to see him. I just kind of want to see. Go on, just fight already. You know, you talk so much. Let me see you fight. Let me see you get out there. Even if you're an old man, get out there and fight. So that would be kind of interesting. Now, I don't know whether that's true. There's nothing that said that's true. But, you know, that's an interesting fight, isn't it? Would it do much for Hughie Fury? No. All it would do for Hughie Fury, if he won, was bring some traction towards him, which he desperately needs because, as I said before, he hasn't got that big time promoter. So he needs to have a little bit of the spotlight put on him and people tuning in to see him. I mean, he will get views because it's probably going to be on Channel 5, so, you know, you will get it because it's free boxing. But we're not talking just about the UK, we're talking about Europe, we're talking about worldwide. You know, he needs to push if he wants to get one of these, another crack at a title, which is in a long list of people that are going to get cracks at titles. So Hughie Fury is a guy that possibly, there's two questions. will he ever reach that possible peak that we kind of think he can? Because we kind of think, well, I kind of think that he's got the skill set to do it. He's got good size, good height, good reach. Or is it really not going to work? Is it not going to work out for him? Has his day gone? Have we seen, what he can do? I don't think so. I think he's only, as I said, he's only 24 and he's still developing. But he's almost not spoken about when we talk about British heavyweights. We obviously talk about Fury, Joshua, White, and then we seem to be now talking about Dubois, Allen, Gorman. Those are the fighters when we talk about British heavyweights, and kind of Hughie's sort of like left out on his own somewhere, and that's because he hasn't got that promoter. He's not pushed. He's not given the opportunity, like they haven't got Sky putting constant adverts, or him on Sky News, or you just don't see those things. The only time you see Hughie Fury is if you watched one of the boxing channels on YouTube where they do an interview with Ruby Boxing Social. Big shout out, or IFL TV, or whoever gets an interview, and that's the only time he seems to get exposure. So for me, I think you could kind of waste your career if you don't change promoters, because I'm pretty much sure, I guarantee that every promoter out there would take him on, purely because of his name, purely because of Tyson. He would take him on, but also, he's a young prospect, and he's kind of in no man's land at the moment. So I would take a check and have a look at where your career is going and what you're going to do. But I'm pretty much sure Mick Hennessy would not want to let him go. And we know that Peter Fury's relationship with Mick Hennessy is very tight. So it's going to be interesting to see who he comes back against. Shannon Briggs, that's who I want. But, it's probably not going to happen. But it's going to be interesting to see who he comes back and where he goes from there, because I don't see a plan. I don't see a pathway for Hughie Fury to get back into that mix again. He was looking to get that opportunity against Joseph Parker, because Joseph Parker, it was an ideal fight for him. It was an introduction to a British audience. He gets to fight in Britain. Do you know what I mean? It was good for Hughie Fury because he got a title shot. But then obviously Joseph Parker went on to lose 2 fights in the bounce, and he's on his own road to come back. So Hughie Fury, young pretender or young contender? For me, it's a little bit of both at the moment. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. Thanks for liking, subscribing, watching, doing all those things. I'm trying to keep up some sort of momentum, and I will be back very soon. But remember, everyone, be careful out there.